Well, hello, builders of good. Thank you for tuning in to Build Good Live. We do this every now and again. We go live on LinkedIn and it also ends up on the Build Good podcast. We do it because fundraising isn't easy. It's not easy, but it should be simple. And so on this show, on these LinkedIn Lives, we try to take the mystery out of raising money. Now, on every episode, we coach you how to build your fundraising like a flywheel. And the flywheel has 5 parts. Number 1 is listening to donors. Number 2 is engaging them. Number 3 is actually like asking the right people for the right things. Number 4 is celebrating every gift at every level. And number 5 is reporting back to donors in a real time and responsive way as if they're an important part of the team, because they are. So if you master the 5 parts of the flywheel, your fundraising flywheel will start to spin reliably with less effort on your part. Your revenue will grow, and so will your career as a fundraiser. So it's a win-win-win. Every week, we focus on a different part of the flywheel. Today, we are mostly focusing on asking, although everything you're about to learn applies to all the other parts of fundraising, because we are talking about how to improve your fundraising copy. We're going to go through 4 super easy, helpful tips that you can implement today and make your fundraising copy, your fundraising writing, your fundraising messaging a lot stronger. And you'll also get 4 bonus helpful tips. We're here today with Hannah Vermeer, our very own, I was going to say secret weapon, not so secret weapon, our in-house fundraising copywriter. Hi, Hannah.
Hi. It's very flattering to be known as a secret weapon.
Yeah, the secret is out though.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going live here. Um, you're making your debut on the podcast. This is super exciting.
Yes, I am. This is, yeah, my debut. We'll see if I fall flat. We'll see if this succeeds. You can all tell me later.
What do you do at Build Good? What does a fundraising copywriter even do all day?
That's a great question. Mostly I write. It seems too easy to say a copywriter just writes, but that's what I do. I love words. I love fundraising. And as a fundraising copywriter, I get to put those together. And that's the gist of it. We write a lot for our done for you clients. So that's appeals, emails, landing pages, newsletters, postcards, and everything else in between that you can imagine. I get to write it.
Yeah, you said it seems easy. Maybe it seems easy. It is really hard though. It is hard to write really good fundraising copy. So you've done a ton of the heavy lifting for us. You've distilled it down into 4 super easy and helpful tips that anyone can use. Before we get into it, I want to know, do words really matter? That's a bit of a facetious question, but like, does it make a difference to actually like be tweaking your fundraising copy and be thinking more deeply about it and in changing the words that we use?
It absolutely does. I think, especially in an age of short attention spans, we've got so much information coming at us. The limited words that we can provide to donors do really matter. And a lot of times we've seen this at Build Good. We like to test. We like to see, okay, if we phrase something this way versus a different way, what kind of results are we going to see with donors? And a lot of times we see that changing copy to be more donor focused, more from the heart, personable, conversational. A lot of times that does resonate with donors. And really the data doesn't lie, right? If we're testing it, we're seeing which one works. We're finding out that words do matter to donors, even with short attention spans.
Yeah, data doesn't lie, and data is just donors, right? It's us listening to donors, be like, okay, it seems like you respond to this, so clearly, whether we agree with it or not, whether that's what we thought might work or not, clearly something is resonating here, and we owe it to our donors to listen to what they have to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. You've got 4 easy ways to improve your fundraising copy, and you've got 4 bonus ways to level up further. So you're
Yes,
actually getting like 8 super tangible tactical tips today. What is number
absolutely.
1? What's number 1? Let's get right into it. I think the most impactful one you've put at the top here.
Absolutely, Mike. I think if you walk away partway through this live, I've put number one at the beginning, so hopefully you remember that one first, which is that it's all about you. Not you, the fundraiser, not you, the organization, but you, the donor. What does that really mean? Donors aren't necessarily the hero, but we want them to be able to see themselves in the copy. If I'm receiving a letter, all I see is you talking about the organization, your programs. Something signals in my brain that says, this isn't really meant for me. This isn't about me. This isn't related to me. As a donor, I want something that relates to me personally. And a big way to do that is just sprinkling in the word you. Um, put you in there early, put it in there often, keep reminding the donor as they read this communication piece that this is something about them and that they clearly fit into it.
Almost every time I go and write fundraising copy, I try to remember this, and then when I write draft one and I go back, it's like shocking how much I've ignored this thing that's deeply ingrained in my practice. It just doesn't come naturally. And so
Absolutely.
I often have to go back and like rewrite entire sentences and just try to like make it a little bit more donor relevant. You
Mhm.
said something super interesting, which we've done a whole episode on, which is the donor is not the hero. And what we mean by that is the donor isn't the only one doing the heavy lifting. So are the people you're helping. They're bringing their own courage to the table, and often a lot more than just courage, like often even work. The
Mhm.
organization is doing a lot of important work. Volunteers and staff are doing important work. But donors do have a very specific and important and meaningful role to play. And in the context of fundraising, we're talking to donors about their role in the story, which is why we often use the word you a lot, not because we're trying to perpetuate any sort of tropes of white saviorism. It's just
Mhm.
like in this context, I'm talking to you about your role.
Mhm.
How do you does this come naturally to you, or do you just like do a sloppy first copy and then you go back and you make it more donor relevant?
That is a great descriptor. The sloppy first copy, like you said, it doesn't always come naturally. And I guess my recommendation would be get down what you want to say first. Like just put your ideas on the page if you're writing a thank you letter for donors. Put everything down. You can go back and insert the you. Look for ways that instead of focusing just on the organization, you can focus on the donor. Instead of saying we did this, you can say you did this. Get your ideas down, insert the you afterward. It will
Mhm.
flow a lot better than you think it will.
Is there room for we? Is it all just you, or is there room for we? And if there's room for we, how do we think about that?
There definitely is room for we. I think, like you said, donors play a part, but it's just one part. They're still the organization. But if you're using we, let the donor still see how they fit into that. It's we, all of us together, us and you and them, and we as a collective, as opposed to we, the separate organization.
Got it. All right, so that's tip number one, which is
Yeah.
in your copy, when you're talking to donors, you're talking to donors about themselves, and it's about you.
Yeah.
It's what can you do? How can you be part of this story? What is something specific and meaningful we're asking you to do? What is your bonus tip here?
Actually, before we go into the bonus tip, I want to show people examples of how this actually plays out. Let's look at some examples. I have two pieces of copy here that instead of writing it this way, try and incorporate the you to make it more donor focused. Instead of saying a gift will ensure we can send kids in Edmonton to school. Shout out to Edmonton, my city here. Instead of saying that, try you can ensure kids in Edmonton get to school. You see it, option one, it's your sloppy first copy. You put the idea down there that you want to say, then you go back and say, instead of the gift, it's you can ensure kids in Edmonton get to school. Similarly, that second first try, the organization is clearly the star. We did this, we did this. It was all because of us. No doubt, your organization did implement your programs. That's really important. But instead, how can we show the donor that they were instrumental in making that happen? You and your fellow Canadians have made this possible. You all stood together, et cetera, et cetera. Really simple ways, get your ideas down first, insert the you afterwards, and it will probably be easier than you think.
Nice. All right. This makes a ton of sense. It seems super simple to do. So this is a great first tip to ease into it. Let's just go back to our copy. Where we're using we, is there a way that we can rewrite it to use you? And there's definitely room for we. Um, but oftentimes we are talking to donors about their role in the story.
Mhm.
All right. Is there a level up to this tip?
Yes, there absolutely is. And I will give the disclaimer, this one's not as easy to implement as just throwing in the you, but it is a level up. So it's not just about you, but it's about your best self.
Ooh, what does that mean?
That is a great question. A donor shouldn't just see themselves in the piece, but they should be able to see their best, most caring, most compassionate selves. I want you to tell me that I'm not just a donor, that I didn't just, support the work, but that because of my kindness, this happened, or that I'm a really compassionate person for giving to support XYZ. So, what does that actually mean? These two top examples, that's actually what I had as inserting you, right?
Mhm.
These are great first starts, and there's nothing wrong with it. I would, in my own copy, I would have a line that says, you can ensure kids in Edmonton get to school. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. What you can do to level up and to sprinkle throughout your copy is put in what I like to call, or I guess what in general is called, moral adjectives. Trusting, steadfast, loving, kind, compassionate, all these things that tell donors these like positive traits that they have
Mhm.
that are motivating the support that they show. So instead of saying you can ensure kids in Edmonton get to school, your love and care can ensure kids in Edmonton get to school. Again, both options are great options, but to give yourself more variety and to signal to the donor, yeah, I'm a loving person, I'm a caring person. You can insert those moral adjectives throughout.
Yeah. It's almost like, what is it about me that that you're speaking to? Oh, it's about the fact that I'm loving and caring.
Mhm,
Um, when somebody says, "Hey, I really like you," that's great. But if somebody says, "I really like the way you show up in the world," or the way you're loving your kids this way, or the way you're caring for your mother in this way, like
mhm.
it gets a little bit more specific, right? And it takes it to, like, another level of a little bit of, like, being seen and, like, being appreciated.
Exactly. And a lot of times what we see when you can call out these really positive traits in a person, in your donors, is that they want to respond in that same way. They're like, "Wow, you're telling me I'm a loving, caring person? Yeah, you're right, I am. And I'm gonna show you through my actions by giving
Mhm.
a gift, by supporting, by whatever else they wanna do."
Yeah. Sometimes somebody might look at this and they might say, aren't you guilt tripping people into giving?"
I'm gonna put that on pause because we're gonna touch on We're going to touch on
Perfect.
guilt later. So now you all have to stay tuned in to hear that.
Sounds good. Is this a secret copywriting technique that you just employed, which is like teasing something out, opening up a story loop or drama loop? Now we all have to stay tuned.
It may be.
All right, so great level up. So, first tip, it's about you. Second tip, it's about your best self. And what are some positive traits that you can call out in your donors? What is tip number two?
Tip number 2. All right, make it easy to read. My recommendation, and generally what we at Build Good recommend, is a grade 4 to 6 reading level. You're like, Hannah, I'm not writing to grade 4 to 6ers. I'm writing to adults. I'm writing to, if the data is true, I'm writing to older adults. Plain language is not dismissive. It's not, doesn't mean you're dumbing it down. It means you're writing in a way that everybody can understand, and it's respectful and dignifying. If your donor needs a PhD to understand what you're writing to them, that's a problem. Make it easy to read, and they're going to read more of it. Because if they start at a really difficult piece, you're at a postgraduate level, I can't understand this. I'm not going to keep reading. I'm not going to spend my time trying to understand this. Grade 4 to 6, really simple, really easy to get through. Maybe they're still skimming. They probably are, but
Mm.
you're making it a lot easier for them to get into that piece if you're keeping it at a grade 4 to 6 reading level.
Yeah. It's almost as if it's like an act of service that you can actually perform for donors,
Exactly.
which is, hey, like I've made this super easy for you to read, super easy for you to understand, because I want you, no matter how busy you are or no matter who you are, to be part of this work. I just want to make it as inclusive as possible,
Exactly.
so you understand what the real need is and how you can help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another important part about making something easy to read is the tone that you're using, not just the specific words or sentence structure, but a really personable conversational tone is easy to read. It's easy for people to stay engaged. So think about how you might write a letter to your grandmother or how you might write an email to your mom.
Mhm.
It's not casual, like too casual or disrespectful, but it's personable. It's conversational. It's something that you want to read.
Yeah. All right. Do you have an example here, or are we going right into the level up? Oh,
No, we
you've come
absolutely do
prepared.
have an
You
example.
have come prepared.
You can already see this is really hard to read. There's a block of text. My eyes are glazing over. I can't do it, right?
Mhm.
So instead of, I'm not even going to read it. Instead of all that, try this. We made this just for you. It's a window into the past 10 amazing years you've been with us. We also want to share some dreams for the next 10 years and how you fit into them. I am coming to a friend. I'm sending them off a quick email. This is what I wrote. We've got the you in there.
Mhm.
We've got it at a grade 4 to 6 reading level. I hope that's true. I didn't test it beforehand. We've got easy to understand words, shorter sentences. We've got an exclamation mark, like all of these things that we're saying exactly the same thing as that top paragraph does, but in a way that's easy to read, easy to understand.
Right. What would you say to somebody who's like, our donors are really educated, sophisticated people? This is just dumbing it down and insulting their intelligence.
That's a great question. I think this actually applies to all of these tips I'm offering today. I'm giving general instructions, but you know your donors, and I hope you know your donors. These apply in a lot of circumstances, in most circumstances, but it's not necessarily right in every circumstance. If you're like, no, we believe that the postgraduate reading level is the best because of these traits that our donors possess, just test it out. Send an A/B test email, see which one performs
Mhm.
better. You're not going to know if your donors resonate with the warm conversational tone versus perhaps a postgraduate reading level unless you try out both, right?
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe your donors will resonate better with that higher reading level grade. I can't say for sure. So test it out.
It's a great call out, because Hannah, Mike, Build Good, we're not fundraising experts. Your donors are experts in the way they like to give.
Mhm.
And any charity, any agency like Build Good, our job is to listen to donors. And testing is one of the best ways to listen to donors and see what makes a lot of sense for them. So testing this out, if your hypothesis is our donors are super smart, educated people, we would be insulting them by speaking too plainly and too easy to understand to them. Give it a test and try it a few different times and see if you see a difference.
Absolutely.
All right. So that was tip number 2. What is the level up to this one?
That is a great question. Technically, I'm cheating here. I'm going to talk very quickly about design. This is not a copywriting tip, but if you make your design easier to look at, it's going to impact if your words are easier to read. So, what do I mean by that? This can apply to both direct mail and email. Maybe you're using small fonts and narrow margins. You're using large walls of text. That big long paragraph I previously shown, maybe you've got lots of that. You've got big flashy graphics, you're image heavy, maybe in an email, you've got a couple videos. All of these design elements can take away from people ever getting to the words that you're saying to them. Try not to be too distracting. Try to make it easier for them to dig in. How do you do that? Increase your font size, make those margins wider, indent your paragraphs, mix up your paragraph size so you've not got huge walls of text, pare back your design, and use images sparingly. And what do we see when we try out these things? It makes it a lot more human looking. If you're sending me an overly designed, image heavy, chock full of videos email from the CEO asking for money versus that plain text, just sat down and wrote this from my Outlook email
Mhm.
kind of appeal, which one looks more human? Which one looks like the CEO actually sat down and wrote it to you?
Yeah. And you're not saying make it easy to read and look at by writing less. You're just saying
Exactly.
this is formatting. Like long form copy might still outperform short form. You have to test it. But when you
Exactly.
have long form, just make sure it's easy to read. Like give it some breathing room.
Exactly.
Work on the formatting so somebody can feel super approachable, right? And
Yeah,
your eyes don't feel tired the moment they're just looking at it.
exactly. I think too, if we're talking about copy that's easy to read is dignifying, so is something that's easy to look at and understand. If you're throwing a lot in my face all at once, I'm distracted, I'm overwhelmed, I can't get to the message you're actually trying to tell me, which may be a really good, really important one. Maybe you need to like save this bird species that's just about to go extinct. But I don't know that because I'm hit by a huge wall of text or I'm hit by a million images all at once. Pare it down a little, see if you can, yeah, pare it down a little.
Yep. All right, what's the next tip? We've got making it all about you, and then we've got like making it super easy to understand by using like plain language, grade 4 to 6. What's the next tip?
Mhm. We want to speak from the heart. What does that mean?
What if I don't have a heart?
What if you don't have a heart? No problem. I've got tips for you.
Nice.
You may have heard this before, but people make donations not from the like logical side of their brain, but from the emotional side, from their hearts. I believe it was a Next After training. Shout out to Next After, that they said nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to give a donation for XYZ reason because I've mapped it out. I've done my research. That doesn't happen. People give from their hearts, they give out of an emotional response to a problem that you're presenting them. So, how can we use our copy to intrigue them, excite them, create passion, inspire, alert them to something that might make them angry? Like, what are the ways we can appeal to people's emotions in order for them to make that emotionally driven decision? All right,
How
let's look
can
at some.
we? Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at some examples. Thank you for your donation. Objectively, not a bad thing. If you're thanking people, great. But how can we go further than that? How can we speak with emotions, speak with something that inspires them? Thank you for giving generously. Can't wait to show you how we'll use your gift to grow girls' STEM programs. There's more there. There's giving generously, not just donation. We can't wait to show you how we'll use your gift, right? There, you're going further than just making a simple description. Thank you for your donation. I already know I made a gift. I know that. Go further. Dig deep into the heart. Our organization is deeply grateful for the important, crucial role you have played in seeing this project to completion. There's something missing here, right? Even though we've got a lot more words there, what does that mean? What are the emotions behind it? You're important to us, and we truly couldn't have done it without you. That's another example of speaking plainly and making it simple. But it also speaks from the heart, right? That's how somebody might actually
Mhm.
talk with their emotions.
Yeah. So this thing happens when we sit down to write. We somehow get more clinical, more academic. I don't know if it's just like that's what the school system beat into us. I don't know what it is. But we sit down to write and the heart kind of goes away.
Absolutely.
We open up a
It
Word
does.
doc and it's like there, right? Um, so how can we get to some of these like heart statements? Do we just like voice memo it out before we write it? Do we just like interview somebody and just like get their voice and then transcribe it? Like how can we
Mhm.
draw out some of this heart thing and not just get blocked by this formal feeling that overwhelms us when we open up a Word doc?
Yes. Those, Mike, were honestly great tips. Voice memo it out. Put your speaking voice into text. We talk a lot different than we write, right? Like we take on that formal, organizational, professional tone, and the heart kind of disappears. Talk it out. A lot of what we like to do at Build Good is we'll interview CEOs of our clients, and the way they can bring up that passion for the cause, the way they can speak with inspiration. They're oftentimes very eloquent speakers, right? But when you go to write, the eloquence disappears, the inspiration falls flat, and you're just saying, please give a donation. Get those interviews with the CEOs, hear them speak, talk to your beneficiaries. They're the ones often experiencing big changes in their life because of your organization. They're the ones who are sometimes the best voices for the emotion, for the inspiration. Um, just talk to people about your organization's programs, what you're doing, how they feel about it, and then try to incorporate some of that into your own writing.
Yeah. You mentioned like ask people how they feel about it. Even just that, like in your
Yeah,
questions, just getting at the feelings, right? Even just
yeah,
like when you see that happen, how do you feel? Or like,
exactly.
well, yeah. What's going on inside of you when this happened? What were you
Mhm.
thinking? What were you?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, this is great. We got to put more heart into it. We got to try to find those feelings. Um, there's a bit of research from Dr. Russell James, which many are familiar with, um, where he basically puts people in a brain scanner and asks them questions about charity. And uh, he figured out that the part of the brain that lights up when we make purchasing decisions is not the same part of the brain that lights up when we make like decisions about philanthropy and giving to charity.
Mhm.
The part of the brain that lights up when we think about charity and making gifts is the familial part of the brain. The part of the brain that lights up when we think about family, friends, all of those like warm, fuzzy feelings. And so we're definitely trying to get more toward that territory, less toward a logical purchasing decision.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. What is the level up for speaking from the heart?
Yes, we are closing the loop on the story we started earlier. We're going to talk about guilt. You're like, Hannah, you're telling me to talk about like my donors as loving, caring people. You want me to speak from the heart. You want me to put that emotion in there. Isn't that manipulative? Isn't that, am I not guilting them into doing something if I'm just saying, like focusing on the emotion, if I'm not appealing to their brain or logic? No. Like Mike said, it's as simple as that, right? But I'll
Just full
explain.
stop. Just no.
Our brain lights up with that familial emotion centered part when we're giving.
Mhm,
We're not robots. We're humans with real emotions. We get excited about things we care about. We get frustrated by problems that need to be solved. And that's what charities are doing. We're making people excited about our causes. We're showing them that we need their help to fix frustrating problems. We are doing good in the world, and that involves a lot of emotion. Speaking without guilt means giving donors options and speaking them in speaking to them in a way that's honest and forthright. You don't have to overload the emotion. You don't have to put it all in there all at once, all the time, but just start sprinkling it in and see what happens.
mhm,
I touched briefly on giving our donors options. Instead of saying, we need you to give today, or millions of people will go hungry, give them a choice. If you're able, would you consider giving today? If it's not the right time for a gift, though, I completely understand. I'm still so grateful to have you with us. We need to be okay with our donors saying no. And that's really hard. We're like, no, but then who's gonna bring in the donations? We have a bottom line we need to meet. We have, a board
mhm,
we're accountable to. We need to hit our fundraising goals. A donor saying no often doesn't mean no, not ever. A lot of times it just means no, not right now.
mm,
It could be that the offer you're presenting them just doesn't resonate with them. Like, actually, I don't care about saving bird species. You come back to them in the fall, you present them with an offer for saving an endangered tree species. They're like, yeah, I really care about the trees more than I care about birds. Now's the right time for me to give a gift. We need to be okay with no, because that's respecting their autonomy, their choice not to give. And maybe that also does mean they're not the right donor, which is even better because we want the right donors saved. We want the right donors aligned with our organization. We want the people who care the most. We don't want people who don't actually care about us or who aren't interested in our cause.
yeah, walk me through the autonomy piece, because a subset of people might say, "Ah, we're guilting donors into giving," and another subset of people might be like, "We need to guilt them more into giving. Why are you giving them the option of not giving? Why are you saying if it's not the right time?" I completely understand. Um, Both are driven out of by a bit of a fear reaction, a fear
Mhm.
of like negative outsized consequences. Um, talk to me more about autonomy. Why does actually giving donors a choice and being so clear about the fact that the choice to give is yours and yours alone?
Mhm.
Why is that actually a service for donors and why is it good fundraising?
Yeah. If we are guilting people into giving, if we're not respecting that they are able to make their own decisions, we might get that donation, but we're probably not going to retain them because we're getting that one-time gift. We've got the $25, great, but we haven't like cultivated that relationship with them. We haven't said, we respect you, we respect your wishes. That guilt just doesn't work long term. It
Mm,
may produce short-term results, but not in the long run.
right.
Similarly, if we say we don't want to give them, we don't want to even suggest not giving because then they'll jump on it and we won't get the gift. We actually don't see that. If you can tell donors it's your choice, it's up to you, it, it's just a more respectful way
Yeah.
of communicating with them. We're not putting these kind of phrases everywhere in the appeal letter. It's not like every time we say, "Can you give $50?" we're following it up with, "But you don't have to." Like we're not putting this qualification in. A lot
Right.
of times we're putting this right at the end of the appeal letter,
Right.
or we might put it in a PS. If we're doing an email series, it might pop in, 1 of 5 or 2 of 5. I'm not saying you need to qualify every time you ask because we should be forthright in our asking, but giving them the option is respectful.
Yeah. Yeah, you're sounds like you're saying you're cultivating the relationship and you're earning the right to ask again in case
Exactly.
now isn't the right time, and it won't be the right time for most people. What
Exactly.
what what is a super successful appeal? Like super successful, out of the park, 20 to 30 percent response rate. That means for 70% of people, it wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right
Exactly.
offer. It wasn't right? So for most people, it won't be the right time at the time you're reaching them, or
Yep.
it won't resonate, or they won't take action, even if it's the right time and the right offer. It's just the
Yep.
way it works. And so by staying super respectful, you're cultivating the relationship and you're earning the right to ask again. I
Exactly.
really like the way you framed that. All right. What is tip number 4?
Tip number 4, be specific. I'm gonna be totally honest, I am guilty of this. It's easy to like that high level language, the abstract. It's easy to get on the page. It's easy
Mhm.
to write a lot. Like, writers in the room, raise your hand if you've ever, like, gone over the word count because that is my problem wholeheartedly. But that's not going to help our donors. That's not going to help our organizations. If we're staying high level, if we're staying abstract, that is not painting a clear picture of what's going on. Plus, high level, what we can call like generic or invisible copy, is really easy to skip over. If I'm reading Help Transform a Life at 5 different organizations, I'm seeing the same thing over and over. I'm seeing I'm not knowing, okay, but like, what do you want me to do? Or what is it my money's actually going to do if I give it to you? That's unclear. I'm skimming over. It's something I've read before a million times. It's not new. How are we going to combat that? By being as specific as possible with our offers, with our asks, with the amount of money we're asking people for, with the impact that their gift will have, with a story that we're telling. Be as specific as possible. Let's look at some examples. The top two, these could apply to any organization, maybe not the kids portion, but fill that in with kids, birds, schools, teachers, women, children. Like, you can make a difference. Okay, but what difference? Go deeper. Tell me if their life looked like this before. I give a gift. Now their life looks like that. That difference is what you should be putting in there instead of
Mhm.
that generic language. Or can you help us raise money, the money we need to accomplish our mission? Not an untrue statement. You do need donations to help you accomplish the mission, but you're not really telling me what you actually need me to do and what my gift is going to do. So let's be specific. For just $40 today, you can give a student their first set of pencil crayons, notebooks, and new shoes. That's making a difference. Their pencil crayons, notebooks, shoes, that's a difference in their life. But I'm being a lot more specific
Mhm.
about what the difference is. If you're able to give today, you'll make it possible for more survivors to start their healing journeys. Great. Now I know that I'm not just helping you accomplish your overarching, really big mission. Because I give, survivors are going to start healing. Very simple, but it's specific.
Yeah. Sometimes organizations are afraid of being this specific because there's a bit of a fear of like, this is I'm gonna change the names to protect the innocent here. But when we're working on on holiday gift catalogs, which we're in the middle of doing right now,
Mhm.
and there's offers like help give somebody livestock, help give somebody chickens, help a student, get their first pencil crayons, notebooks, and new shoes, and a fundraiser says or a CEO says, I'm afraid I'm going to run into a donor at the grocery store and they're going to be like, did that one child get the pencil crayons, the notebooks, and new shoes? Because we were so specific in our ask.
Mhm.
Help us calm some nerves here, maybe, and help us understand how you can still be super specific while raising funds that benefit the entire organization.
Exactly. That's the constant tension, right? We need to raise undesignated funds because a lot of times there's those programs that are less glamorous, but no less important, right? Or that are harder to raise money for, but we still need to fund them because they're really important. Raising undesignated funds doesn't need to be abstract or boring or give all these qualifications. A really simple way that you can combat that is with the word can. Your gift can provide a student with new shoes. And you're like, Hannah, that's splitting hairs. I'm being honest about our approach in a lot of undesignated fundraising. Not your gift will do this. We're not guaranteeing, but it could do that. And a lot of times we put in those gift disclaimers that are at the bottom of the reply device. They're in smaller font. It says all like in the gift guide, for example, the gifts in this guide are representative of our programs and services, right? We're giving these to show you what your gift could do, but we can't guarantee your $20 did provide a chicken to a farmer in said country. That's a really simple way. It's a lot more complex than that, and we probably don't have enough time to get into it.
Yeah. Perfect. We just got our next LinkedIn Live. How to raise
Yes,
undesignated
undesignated
funds.
fundraising.
Yeah. All right. This is great. What's the level up? I can't imagine level up of being super specific.
There is a level up. Be a curiosity creator.
All right. Way to create curiosity with that headline.
That was my hope, right? Practicing what I preach. So what does that mean? How can your writing give just enough away to capture people's attention? Our attention spans are so fleeting. It used to be that you needed to see something, I think it was 7 times before it really stuck in your brain. I think, Mike, is it up to like 20 now? It's something absurd. We need to see stuff a lot before it sticks in our mind. Your copy needs to create a little bit of mystery, hook me, grab my attention when I'm scrolling through my email inbox and I just got 20 new emails and I need to be able to see yours. What are some examples of that? I've picked out two ways that you can create curiosity on the outer envelope of a direct mail appeal or a newsletter, let's say, and in the subject line, because this is what is going to capture people's attention. They've picked up their mail, they're flipping through it, they've got junk mail, they've got ads, they've got all sorts of stuff, they've got bills. What is going to make them want to open your envelope instead of throwing it in the recycling? Instead of giving everything away, just give a little bit away. Instead of saying, inside this envelope, there's an appeal to send children in Zambia to school. Can you help us reach our goal? Well, I already know that I don't want to make a donation. No, recycling. I didn't open it because I already know what's inside. I'm not intrigued. Maybe instead you write, school is free, but he still can't afford it. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Wait, why can't he afford it if it's free?
Exactly. What does that mean? Even though I see that it's from your organization, you've captured my attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clickbait. You're just sparking a little interest.
Yeah, I like that. So I do want to talk about clickbait because
Yes,
oftentimes somebody's like, that's clickbait. Um, if it delivers, it's not clickbait. If it
exactly.
doesn't deliver, then you have baited somebody.
Exactly.
Um, but if you're delivering, like if there's actual bait at the end and like they're getting the thing that you promised, you open up a story loop. I open this thing up and like it delivers a resolution. That
Mhm.
isn't clickbait, right? Clickbait is what we're used to of like, you know, 5 ways that your house could fall apart tomorrow. Number 3 will be like shocking. And then like you get to number 3 and it's like somebody could set on fire. It's like, well, yeah, that yeah, that's not news. Um,
Exactly.
so that's great. Like as long as you
Yes,
deliver, this is not clickbait.
exactly.
It's making it interesting, which in and of itself is valuable. We like interesting things. We like stories.
Exactly. We like new, we like novel, especially when you're competing with a lot of, I don't want to say competing, you're fundraising alongside a lot of other charities, especially we're speaking from Canada. The number of donors giving to charities is going down. You need to stand out in a way that says, here's a reason why you should give to me. And I'm going to capture your attention and show you that reason. So there's the outer envelope, then there's also subject lines. The email comes into my inbox. It says, can you give to our Thanksgiving campaign? Nope, don't want to. I already know what you want me to do with this email. It's from, just your organization. It's in all caps. My brain says, person didn't write that. It was an automated email. Goodbye. I instead get an email in my inbox from, Mike Dirksen, subject line, speaking frankly. Mike's emailing me. What does he want to speak frankly about? It's in all lowercase. He probably wrote this himself. Just those little changes, comes from a real person, looks like it was written from a real person. I've got a little bit of intrigue. What does he want to speak frankly about? I open the email. He needs to speak frankly about the fact that increase for Thanksgiving meal or demand for Thanksgiving meals is going up, and he needs my help to serve more neighbors in our city. Started a promise, delivered on it. Maybe I open the email, I read through it. I'm not going to click through. I don't want to give a donation. That's okay. But you've gone over that first hurdle of capturing attention and getting them to open it so that you can make your case for support.
Um, Fantastic. So these subject lines, like you got speaking frankly here, you've got wow, just wow, instead of thank you for your donation. This is me realizing 50 minutes in, this is also an audio podcast, and we've been relying on the slides a lot. So I'm giving Doing a little bit of audio context for our dear podcast listeners. Where do we go hunting for these? Because again, when you go and write, you feel you're going to do the formal subject line because for some
Mhm.
reason that's ingrained in our brain. What's the, I don't know, how can we break our frame here? What's some inspiration we can go and hunt?
That's a great question, Mike. There are so many sources for out of the box or even just everyday normal subject lines. Look in your own email inbox and look for an email from your mom or your grandma or your dad or your grandpa. I will say that was a gold mine for me. I've gotten plenty of weird, boring, normal, sounds like it was written by an everyday person subject lines from my mom because she's an everyday person. She's she's somebody who would sit down and write me an email, right? That's one spot. Honestly, um, Chat GPT, Google, they can give you plenty of weird, thought provoking, get the spark moving subject lines. Um, some of them are definitely weird. I wouldn't just copy paste, use your discretion. I know that a lot of the subject lines from I believe it was the Obama campaign, are really well known. And they're very like short, they inspire mystery, they sound like they were written by your grandpa, just shooting you off a quick
Mm.
email, things like that. There's a lot of resources at our disposal for coming up with subject lines when the creative juices just aren't flowing, or when we want to default to, sentence case or excuse me, every word capitalized formal language.
I want to end it here, which is you're a fundraising copywriter. So you spend all day thinking about fundraising copy. You get to launch a lot of copy. Every week we're putting stuff out. Every week we're
Mhm.
testing stuff. And so you get to learn all the time what's
Yeah.
working, what isn't working.
Yeah.
Somebody's working in-house and maybe they write a few times per year for an appeal or
Mhm.
once a month for the email, whatever it is. They're not doing it all day every day. They're like, "Oh man, how can I get better?" Um, is there I don't know. Is there a shortcut or is it like you just got to write and you'll get better?
I wish it were a shortcut. I also wish it were like this complex thing that as long as you know it and implement it, you're good to go. Just write. That's how I improved my own copy. I just wrote more. I took what I learned from courses, from LinkedIn tips, from podcasts, and just started putting it into practice. Start small. You're not going to revamp your entire fundraising copywriting approach in one night and be like, oh, I have all these great tips now. I'm going to do all of them at the same time. Don't do that. Start small, put in you. Once you've mastered making your communication piece more donor centric, move on to making it easy to read. Then move on to being specific. Then move on to, giving donors a choice. Small steps create a better copywriting, more holistic copywriting approach. As we talk about at Build Good, those small little drips of communication, those small little donor connection points all build a bigger relationship with your donor and a more robust relationship. So start small. Do those little drips, incorporating these tips into your fundraising copywriting, and overall, in the long term, you'll see a more robust approach.
Love it. Default to action. Action yields information. Do the thing, you'll learn something. Do it again, you'll learn something. Do it again, you'll learn something.
Exactly. I'm still learning. So drop your tips for me in the comments. I want to learn from you.
Hannah, this was great. To recap, 4 simple ways plus 4 ways to level up. Number one, it's about you. Make it donor relevant. Try to address the donor by using the word you a lot. But then the bonus level is to actually see donors for more than just the word you and start addressing them with some moral traits, moral objectives, saying things like your kindness, your generosity, your steadfast faith, things like that. Number two, make it super easy to read. Write at a grade 4 to 6 reading level. We didn't get into what tools to use, but there's lots. Just Google.
Mhm.
Lots of tools can help you actually grade your writing. So keep it simple. It's the most inclusive thing you can do for your donors is to make it accessible to understand. The
Mhm.
bonus level up tip here is do the same for your design. Over designing is actually a sin.
You heard it here
you,
first, folks.
you think you might be making it super pretty and super on brand or whatever, but really what you're doing is you're taking away from the readability of it. So keep it easy to read. Number three is speak from the heart. Um, get your emotions out there, tap into your feelings. If you have to voice memo it, if you have to interview somebody, if you have to interview yourself, if somebody has to interview you, think about questions like how does that make you feel, what were you thinking in that moment, what did you think was going to happen. When you think back on that, what comes to mind, just start tapping into the heart, into the feelings. The bonus level up here is no guilt tripping, which is you're not trying to make anybody feel bad about not giving. You're trying to make them feel good about giving. So that's
Mhm.
that's the behavior that we're celebrating people for. Number four is be super specific and concise. Make sure donors know that they have a specific and meaningful role to play by being as specific as possible with the thing that will happen in the world when they make a gift. And it's not just giving hope and dignity and safety. It's what do those things mean? What does it mean to provide dignity? Maybe it's providing a bed for the night. Maybe it's providing somebody with a space to get clean from addictions. Whatever it is, get super specific about it. And the bonus level up here is to be a curiosity creator, is to think about what is the most interesting way that I can convey this story to a donor? How can I serve somebody? How can my email, how can my appeal, how can whatever I'm sending them, what if Pixar wrote it? How would they make it interesting? Just like open up those little story loops
Mhm.
and not clickbait people, like deliver on the clickbait and deliver that value so that people are glad that they open up your email or your letter or whatever it is. Hannah, this is fantastic. If people want to know more, they want to find you, if they want to connect with you, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, message me on LinkedIn. You want more tips on copywriting? You want further clarification on what we talked about today? Message me on LinkedIn. You can also reach me at hannahv@buildgood.com. That's my email. Hit me up. I love talking about words. I love talking about writing.
Hannah Vermeer is copy at Build Good. That's all for today. Um, my short action plan for you is actually super simple. Is I just want you to take tip number one from Hannah and implement it. I want you to go through whatever you're about to send out or write. When you go back to it, replace every single instance of we with a you. Just try it as an exercise. Just give this a go. And just for one sentence, I want you to try to include uh, a positive trait that you can recognize a donor for. It can be their care, their kindness, their justice mindedness. It can be their faith. It can be their steadfast support. It can be their loyalty. Find something that you can thank donors for, or a positive trait you can call out in a donor. And that's all. That's your short action step for today. As always, thank you for hanging out with us around the fundraising campfire here on LinkedIn Live and the Build Good fundraising podcast. If you want to be in the know about tests that we're running, things we're learning, we teach everything we know. Go to buildgood.com. There's multiple places to enter your email address. As we're learning stuff, we're sharing it with you. It is our mission as a teaching hospital to not only take really good care of clients, but then also teach fundraisers
Mhm.
along the journey. If you're listening to this, you're our kind of people. We're your kind of people. Thank you for the work you do. I'm your host, Mike Dirksen, cheering you on as you do good in the world.